delighted that Matthew is here to share his view and his thinking on the development of a culture of peace. So Matthew, please join us.
By what your city has been doing to develop a deeper consciousness around peace. God knows we all need that today, all around the world. And why not begin here in Ashland and run it for 11 days. But that word culture is related to the word cult. Not the negative version of cult, as in a crazy cult group, but in the sense of ritual. In the sense of ritual. So this makes even more timely the ritual that we're invited to participate in tomorrow that we call the Cosmic Mass. It's kind of a culmination of your 11, it'll be the 12th day of your development, this important theme of peace. So when I was reflecting on this theme, two areas really came up to me. And they kind of have to do with whether or not we as a species have been waging war. First of all, against the universe itself. And I think that both science and religion have been waging this war for centuries. Science, for a couple centuries, told us the universe is a machine. The nearest analogy to the universe is a machine. So the mechanical universe shut down Father Sky and all of its creativity and wonder that had caught the imagination of human cultures all over the world, and certainly of men, because Father Sky represents the sacred masculine in its fullest form. But also, of course, we have been waging war against Mother Earth and our bodies, and especially our lower chakras. If I could change anything in the human species today to move us into recovering the energy of peace, and peace is an energy. It's not a lack of war. It's an energy, but a positive energy. If I could do two things, it would be to call again on the power and the energy of Father Sky, of a living cosmos, on the one hand, and also on the energy of our lower chakras, which are so ignored in education and in a lot of religion, where we're taught to think from the neck up and to pray from the neck up. We must include all the chakras in our education and in our celebrations, in our gratitude for life, and in our search for wisdom. Now, while modern science put out this model of the mechanical universe, modern religion, which split from science in the 17th century, became more and more psychologized, more and more introspective, and more silly. More and more silly. And Pope Francis is right with the word he uses many times, the word that our species has fallen into, narcissism. When you cut yourself off from the sky and the cosmos, you're setting yourself up for colossal narcissism. And so what I'd like to talk to you tonight is about how we can move from this Trinitarian war, if you will, a war against the cosmos, on the one hand, and that has reduced religion itself to psychologism and narcissism. They war against our bodies. After all, our bodies are our connection to the cosmos. All the elements of our bodies contain the history of 13.8 billion years of the unfolding of the universe. 60% of our bodies are hydrogen and helium that were cooked in the original fireball 13 billion years ago. That's how old we are. And our bodies are literally the same stuff as the planets, the stars, the galaxies, as you well know. And the third war we need to address is this war against our lower chakras, which in turn becomes a war against Mother Earth, because we connect to Mother Earth through our lower chakras. And that's why dancing is such an important part of indigenous prayer and ceremony, and it is a very important part of our cosmic dance. Get out of our seats and start dancing again. Now, none other than Black Elk introduces us to Father Sky being the source of peace. This is what Black Elk, one of the great indigenous spiritual avatars of our continent, wrote. He said, "The first peace, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers. And when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells Wankantanka, the Holy One, and that this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. This is the real peace, and the others are but reflections of this." So if we have cut ourselves, the psyche, off from the cosmos, we're nowhere near peace. And we're just talking Band-Aids when we use the word. But the good news today is that our generation has been gifted with a new cosmology from science, which is repenting, I hope, for its sins of mechanical universe, and is informing all of us of the awe and the wonder and the surprise of our 13.8 billion year journey right to this day. The cosmos is one. And if you run the film of the universe backwards to its origin, it began smaller than a zygote and has been unfolding, creating every second since. And it's hundreds of billions of galaxies large. And indeed, a star is being born every 15 seconds in Father Sky. Far from being inert and cold and a machine, Father Sky is a maternity bed. Which is, in fact, what the great mystic Meister Eckhart said in the 14th century. He said, "What did God do all day long? God lies on a maternity bed giving birth." Now, a contemporary geologian, he called himself a geologian, Thomas Berry, who spent his life studying Native American religions and Eastern religions and today's science. He has a powerful statement about how today's cosmology has brought us up to the moment when psyche and cosmos can come together again. And this is where peace begins, as Black Elk pointed out. And these are the words of Thomas Berry. "The human venture depends," he writes, "absolutely on the quality of awe and reverence and joy in the earth and all that lives and grows upon the earth. In the end, the universe can only be explained in terms of," now I'm going to leave that blank for a second. Just think to yourself, if you had one word to describe the universe as you understand it today, what would be that one word? Think on it. Here's Thomas Berry's word: celebration. In the end, The universe can only be explained in terms of celebration. It is all an exuberant expression of existence itself. That's what we're here for, folks, to be exuberant. And to celebrate with the universe and within the universe and because of the universe, which is our home. And this is the origin of all peace, as Black Elk says. There it goes on. A way is opening for each person to receive the total spiritual heritage of the human community, as well as the total spiritual heritage of the universe. Obviously, we're living in a time of interfaith. We can draw on so many spiritual traditions. Within this context, the religious antagonisms of the past can be overcome. The particular traditions can be vitalized, and the feeling of presence in a sacred universe can appear once more to dynamize and sustain human affairs. In other words, to reinvent politics, economics, media, education, and religion. And if you don't think these things need reinventing, we're on another planet. Finally, says Thomas Berry, we must feel that we are supported by that same power that brought the earth into being, that brought that power that spun the galaxies into space, that tilted the sun and brought the moon into its orbit. To me, that's just a fine statement of the energy of peace that returns when Psyche and Cosmos marry again after this split, this divorce that has occurred for centuries in the West. Now, another source of peace, besides the awe, the wonder, the beauty of the universe, and recovering it again, with the help of science, of course, is what the mystics call the via negativa. That is to say, mindfulness in the sense of mind emptiness. How can you have mindfulness if you haven't had some mind emptiness? So that's what meditation is. It's stilling the mind. The psalmist says, be still and learn that I am God. So meditation is about learning stillness, contemplation. Meister Eckhart says, nothing in all creation is so like God as silence. And of course, being so near to creation as you are here in Oregon is such a blessing because there is so much stillness that we learn in creation. Baudelaire, the 19th century French artist, said, we walk through forests, plural, of physical things that are also spiritual things that look on us with affectionate looks. But we have to be receptive. We have to be still. We have to let our busy minds go at times in order to receive those blessings from the forests, from the rivers, from the mountains, from the grasses where we dwell and where we walk. I believe the real meaning of meditation is, given today's science, is calming the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain, as you know, is the oldest of our three brains, 420 million years old. That's old. It wants to dominate. Besides, reptiles like to dominate. With a crocodile, it's win-lose. There's not a lot of compromise. And if you look around the world today, to say nothing of the presidential election, we can see that the reptilian brain is still dominating. It's outside. It's doing its thing. It wants to be number one at all costs. How do we calm the reptilian brain? Because the mammal brain, which is only half as old, 210 million years old, is the brain of compassion. The word for compassion in both Hebrew and Arabic comes from the word for womb. So the womb people bring compassion, they bring kinship, family, friendship, and the rest. We don't want to kill our reptilian brain. It accomplishes a lot for our respiratory system, our sexuality, and our sense of dealing with danger. So we don't want to kill the reptilian brain, but we do have to learn how to tame it, especially at this time in history. And that's where meditation comes in. How am I so sure of that? Because reptiles are not real good at bonding, but they're great at lying alone in the sun. That's what a monk is. Monos means solitude. Monk, from which we get the word monk. So your reptilian brain is a monk. It wants solitude. It wants meditation. Nice crocodile, nice crocodile. You can calm your crocodile, befriend your crocodile brain, and then that mammal brain can finally begin to flourish. So all that, I think, is part of the via negativa, this path into developing our sense of peace. Because when we can learn solitude, we carry an inner peace wherever we go. And that is so essential. Then the third dimension to developing an inner peace and an outer peace is our creativity. Our creativity. This too gets neglected in our educational system, terribly so. When there's a budget crunch in education, which is always, out goes the theater department, out goes music, out goes dance. And you never hear a politician, when they talk about education, talk about anything except more money for technology, science, and math. Well, nothing against science, technology, and math, unless they banish art and creativity. I developed a pedagogy for adults 35 years ago that's been a part of our university for years, and now we're starting up a new university, I'm happy to say. And there's probably cards here about that. But I took it to the inner city 7 years ago in Oakland, because 64% of black boys in America are not graduating from high school today. Is that because they're dumb or because our definition of education is dumb?
Yeah.
The adults are dumb. Well, I did a pilot project, and I had these inner city kids, teenagers, creating film and murals and rap and poetry. And at the end of the year, 100% of them said they wanted to stay in school now. Why? Because they experienced the joy of creativity. Duh. The joy of learning. Duh. You don't experience the joy of learning when the whole system is set up just to give exams and pass exams. And the young are smart enough to know that. One time in class, an 18-year-old black kid turned to me and said, he's a senior. It's the first time in 4 years of high school, he said, that anyone has asked him to express himself creatively. Creativity has not been a value or a virtue in the modern era. Getting in line has been the virtue and the value. Getting in line to march in the mechanical universe to mechanical songs to wage mechanical wars. All this we have to move beyond immediately. Here's M.C. Richards, a wonderful human being. She was in my faculty for years, a potter, famous potter, became a painter at 70, poet, philosopher. She wrote the classic work Centering, which compares the centering that you do on clay, with clay on a wheel with the centering we do in our souls that trying to live our lives. But here's just one sentence from her that captures, I think, exactly what I'm trying to say about creativity and peace. She says, we have to realize that a creative being lives within ourselves, whether we like it or not. And we must get out of its way, for it will give us no peace until we do. We are all born creative beings. We are all artists. The great Navajo painter, David Paladin, said late in his life, I'm so sick and tired of hearing white people tell me they're not artists. If you can talk, you're an artist. Because you're translating your thoughts and your feelings into language. That's an art form. So get over it, this inferiority complex that you're not an artist. It's an art form to balance your checkbook. It's an art form to raise your kids. It's certainly not a science. It's an art form to develop your friendship and to make your marriage work. There are a whole and it's an art form to build your house, to grow your garden, to fix your car. Again, our modern consciousness has so narrowed our understanding of creativity and art. But notice what MC is saying. If we cannot tap into the creativity, we're going to be at war with ourselves. Because we've got this juice in us to give birth, all of us, in some way. To leave behind a gift, as Otto Rank used to say. He defined the artist as one who wants to leave behind a gift. Is there anyone here who doesn't want to leave behind a gift? Why would we want to leave behind a gift? Well, first of all, because we know we're leaving. Life is short. But also because we want to say thank you. Let's leave behind a gift, not a turd. Not a damaged planet. Not damaged individuals. And children who are joyless and out of touch with their creativity. So that's the third source of peace, unleashing our creativity. And then the fourth is what the mystics call, what we call the via transformativa, the actual actions of justice and compassion that bring balance back. Whether we're talking about balance between us and the climate, the earth, the four-legged ones, all this destruction that's happening at this time in history, this unparalleled, except 60 million years ago when the dinosaurs disappeared. We're living at a time of the greatest extinction spasm in 60 million years. And that was when the dinosaurs disappeared. Here we have elephants, tigers, lions, polar bears, whales, rainforests, so much beauty, so much wisdom, disappearing before our eyes, melting before our eyes. And it seems that in many ways we're going around business as usual. I was on a conference several months ago in Florida about climate warming and seas rising. And at that time, Florida had 3 prominent politicians, 2 of them running for president, one of them the sitting governor, all of them in denial about climate change. I visited South Miami where there's 6 inches of water on the sidewalks. And the conference began with the scientist. He got up and he showed pictures of Florida. Today, what it will look like 10 years from now, chop. 20 years from now, chop. 40 years from now, chop, chop. One lesson I learned was, hey, don't invest in real estate in Florida. Invest in rubber boots and boats. But I don't mean yachts, I mean rowboats. I mean, it was scary. And then everyone was so depressed when this scientist sat down. They were literally slumping in their chairs like wet wash rags. And I had to step up and give a talk. And I talked about denial, the power of the human species to go into denial. Meister Eckhart says God is the denial of denial. In other words, where denial reigns, divinity's gone absent. Because there's no truth in the room. Thomas Aquinas said that people who choose to be ignorant of something they ought to know about that's important are committing a mortal sin, meaning we're spreading death in our culture and in our own souls. It's a serious thing to be stuck in denial and to have an entire political party in America that is in denial about climate change and about what science is telling us. It's darn scary. So the invitation to justice and to compassion is a fire. It's a fire. Aquinas says compassion is the fire that Jesus came to set on the earth. The Dalai Lama says we can do away with all religion, but we can't do away with compassion. Compassion is my religion, he says. Well, there's an agreement on that. Jesus, Luke 6, says, be you compassionate as your Creator in heaven is compassionate. And he gets that from his Jewish tradition. Because in Judaism, compassion is the secret name for God. And Jesus kind of let the secret out of the bag. Not that Christians have all picked up on it. The secret's out. And in the Quran, by far, the number one adjective applied to Allah is Allah, the compassionate one. This is a universal teaching that we're here to do justice. Compassion is not about feeling sorry for others. It's not about dropping crumbs from the table. It is justice according to the biblical tradition. Compassion means justice, says Moshe Eckhart, and that's the Jewish tradition. So, the work of justice is the work of peace. There could be no peace without justice. But I'm saying there could be no peace without creativity. And there could be no peace without emptying and silence and solitude and contemplation. And there could be no peace without awe and wonder and recovering our place in the sacred universe again. And from that awareness comes reverence. And when there is reverence, there is peace. When there is reverence, we know we're in the presence of something greater than ourselves. That's the universe. It's Mother Earth. It's Father Sky. And it is God or Goddess by whatever name you know her. Or it is the great mystery, the silent one. Or as Meister Eckhart put it, God is super essential darkness who has no name and will never be given a name. So this is swimming in the great presence that is nameless. And I'd like to close with a brief poem, part of a poem by Thomas Merton. My latest book is on Thomas Merton. How many of you know who Thomas Merton is? Oh, great. He was a wonderful Catholic monk, a Trappist monk. It's a very strict order. He died in 1968. I now have proof that he was murdered by the CIA. He was the first religious figure to come out against the Vietnam War. His friend, Dr. Martin Luther King, came out afterwards. In fact, it's interesting, King's death in Memphis occurred the very weekend that he had scheduled, along with Thich Nhat Hanh, to have a retreat with Thomas Merton at Merton's Monastery. At the last minute, King canceled the retreat to go and do his work to march with the garbage collectors in Memphis. And of course, that was his last work. So what you have in these people is this wonderful marriage of contemplation and action. This is what's needed today. This is what young people are yearning for today. I meet so many young people who in a previous era would have been monks or would have been nuns, but no, they realize today we all have to carry peace within our hearts as we go about the struggles of standing up for justice and compassion. But I've spoken with 3 CIA agents who were in Southeast Asia at the time Merton was murdered, or was killed, died suddenly in Bangkok. 3 hours after he gave a talk entitled Karl Marx and Monasticism. This is 1968, the height of the Vietnam War. Not the most prudent title for a talk in Southeast Asia at the time. The first CIA agent said to me, I said, did you guys kill Merton? He said, I'll neither affirm it nor deny it. The second one said, we were wallowing in money there in 1968 in the CIA in Southeast Asia. And he said, therefore, and there was no accountability whatsoever. He said, any single CIA agent who felt Merton was a threat to the country could have had him done in with no questions asked. But the third person I met, who I met after my book came out a few months ago, I said, did you guys kill Merton? He said, yes. He said, the last 40 years of my life, I have been cleansing my soul from the toxic actions I was part of at that time as a young man in the CIA in Southeast Asia. So Merton died a martyr to peace. So I'd like to close with part of this little poem. It's a marvelous poem. It's called The First Word About Man, meaning human beings. Man begins in zoology, he says, meaning, of course, he's affirming evolution. We begin in zoology. Man is the saddest animal. He drives a big red car called anxiety. And every time he goes to the phone to call joy, he gets the wrong number. Therefore, he likes weapons. Therefore, he likes weapons. And he knows all guns by their proper name. I'm going to stop right there. There's more to the poem, but to me that hits your topic of these 11 days. Where war comes from. Lack of joy. Lack of joy. And we will not carry on the work of justice, the work of creativity, the work of contemplation, or the work of awe and wonder until we recover a sense of courage. And courage, remember, is two French words, cœur large, a big heart. How do we grow our hearts? Joy grows the heart. Aquinas says, joy expands the heart. Fear shrinks us. We all know when fear goes like this. And fear has dominated this cultural matrix since 9/11 like nobody's business. The media are making money hands over fist, and so too are politicians. Not all of whom are sane. And I won't mention anyone by name. The truth is that fear is everywhere. And all these headlines about terrorists here and terrorists there. We're killing a lot more people ourselves by bad food than all the terrorists have ever done to North America. So the whipping up of fear is the killing of compassion. Aquinas says fear in the human being is such a powerful emotion that it drives out all compassion. Fear is incompatible with compassion. We have to choose which path we're going to take. And joy expands the heart. So it is through joy, and there's joy in creativity, there's joy in silence, there's joy in awe, and there's joy in doing justice and compassion. We choose that path of joy. We are choosing to expand our hearts, to build our courage. So let's pray that the next generation will be a generation of courage. And they will have the support of elders to enlarge their hearts and their minds and their consciousness. That peace is possible, but it's work. It takes work. What does David Orr, the eco-philosopher, say? He defines hope this way. He says, hope is a verb with the sleeves rolled up. I say peace is a verb with the sleeves rolled up. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful.